right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this episode of FinOps Fridays. I'm your host, Hunter Willis, and today I've got Matt Cowsert here with us from the FinOps Foundation. He is the product manager for the Focus specification. We're going to do a quick intro and dive right into it here too. But first, Matt, as always, we're going to jump in with our rapid fire questions here, and then let you introduce yourself if that works.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we're coming in hot today, right? All right, so do you prefer, getting to know you a little bit here, Mac or PC?
Ooh, I'm a Mac guy.
Android or Apple?
I am an Apple guy.
Chat or like email?
I prefer chat. It's a bit
Okay.
more personal.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Slack or Teams?
I like the simplicity of Slack.
Okay. And do you prefer like online meetings or in-person meetings?
I prefer in person, though I do appreciate the transcription ability of the online meetings.
Nice, yeah, of course. You know, nobody said that before, but that makes a lot of sense too, man. Are you a morning person or more of like a night owl, do you think?
Ooh, I am a very morning-oriented person. I'm
All
like
right.
solar powered, so sun comes up, I'm good. Sun goes down, I'm ready to sleep.
And then after you wake up, do you like your coffee or tea?
I love coffee a ton, though I'm also trying to optimize my sleep. So I'm starting to adopt a tea in the morning first and then get into coffee for the morning.
I feel like FinOps people are always trying to find other things to optimize, right? Spring or
Didn't have
fall.
enough.
Right.
I'm a big college football guy, so fall for me always has a special place in my heart.
All right. Cake or pie?
Cake. I love cake.
All right. And pancakes or waffles?
I'm a pancake guy. So give me some chocolate chip pancakes and key to my heart.
All right. Dogs or cats or neither?
I love dogs. I'm not anti-cat. I'm just pro-dog.
Okay. All right. Good way to be. The beach or the mountains or take a tour when you go on vacation?
I love all of those things, but I would have to pick beach. Give me some sunshine, a little bit of sand, and I'm a happy man.
This is good, man. And then the last one is, of course, do you feel like you're more introverted or like extroverted?
I feel like it's situational. I do enjoy being around people, so maybe extroverted, but I also wear out, after a longer day. So I appreciate my alone time as well. Sorry for the non-answer.
No, but I can relate to that. I'm like, I feel really extroverted. I get all this energy, but at the same time, like, I take those personality tests and they're like 51-49. I kind of do get worn out after a while. So I get it, man. No, that's great.
100%.
But thanks again for joining us today, Matt. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and talk about your role as the product manager for Focus here at the FinOps Foundation before we kind of dive into things. So again, tell us more about yourself and what that looks like over there.
Yeah, so I joined the FinOps Foundation back in April of last year to be the principal product manager for Focus. Before that, I was at AWS building billing cost management software. So my love for looking at billing data and all the fun activities that go into that is something that's deeply rooted. And even before joining AWS, I was did financial planning and analysis for the U.S. Army for 3.5, almost 4 years. So as it relates to like what do I do day in, day out, like I talk to practitioners, I try to talk to folks that we want to be generating the data based off of the feedback we're hearing from practitioners. And then I get the pleasure of being within the working group that actually develops the spec. So that's where I spend the majority of my time. And occasionally I get to talk to folks like you.
Yeah, no, again, I really appreciate it too. It's been a pleasure. We have had 1 or 2 conversations before this, and I appreciate all that too. It's been good getting to know you, man. I feel like we had Sean on here when Focus 1.2 came out, and he left me with a strong impression that at the high level, for people that aren't familiar with Focus, it's a specification, basically like a format or a taxonomy ish that is trying to normalize the cost and billing across the 3 major CSPs as well
Mhm.
as bringing other things like SaaS costs and on-prem costs into a standard format, not only so that things can be optimized and familiarized, but also for like FinOps practitioners as they're moving around for different organizations. It helps establish FinOps as more of like a practice and something that can be like a career thing where it's not you're starting from scratch everywhere you go all the time necessarily. And that's kind of the goal moving forward. So, Matt,
Yeah.
how good of a summary is that? Can you level set with us more about Focus before we talk about the new update that's come out?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you like a 95 out of 100. Like you nailed it
All
pretty
right.
well.
Thank
I
you.
will say, like I think of Focus first and foremost as like a unifying language for understanding and normalizing technology spend, and then for folks, and again, some folks use what we call Focus, which is they take an inspiration from the Focus spec, but maybe don't follow it to a T. Depends on if there's like internal processes or their data generators don't support Focus yet. That's okay. But yeah, to your point around there is a specification. It's very descriptive around like what the expectations are for the data. So an apple is an apple is an apple across your providers. And then from that, we can then extend this into other areas for understanding the technology spend on a use case by use case basis. Funny story with Sean, just for folks that don't know, Sean's the Focus Working Group chair. He was the first person I interviewed with for this role. And I actually listened to this podcast to try to get a little bit of intel on him before we met in person. So
That's awesome.
I was originally supposed to have a Zoom call with him, and then I saw your thing where he's like, "Oh, I love in person." I don't know if I've even shared this with Sean yet, but so surprise, Sean.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, a little snooping around, and then yeah, we were able to catch up with coffee, and a 30-minute conversation turned into an hour and a half conversation, and then yeah, I was hooked. So I was it's all been roses after that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and that's also a really great description. So thank you for diving more into that with us and kind of again level setting here. And the big thing that's going on is you all have released Focus 1.3. So can you talk to us
Yeah.
about and I also want to hear so it's a new update. Tell us about that, but also tell us about what you're hearing from the community, kind of how the feedback helped inform this update and what you're looking for moving forward too.
Yeah. So one of my kind of roles coming into the foundation was to put a bit more what I call like product management structure around the way that we're prioritizing what goes into the spec versus not. And it doesn't mean that that wasn't happening already. It was just like kind of taking the innate practices that maybe weren't as well documented and kind of putting it into a structured workflow that says like we prioritize organizational support and we try to make sure that the things that are going to be most meaningful for the broadest um, set of organizations kind of bubble to the top. It's not a complete like it's not the exact roadmap for how we're thinking about including certain things versus not, but it's a very strong input. And again, I think this was already happening, but I spent a bit of time and effort kind of putting that into practice. What we realized is that there were a number of phenomenal ideas coming from practitioners, some coming from the data generators themselves, on what we should be thinking about including in Focus 1.3. So, one of the biggest decisions that we had to make, and not to get super nerdy on this, but Focus before was a single cost and usage data set, and a lot of other like hyperscaler providers like have a single unified flat file. Again, how you engage with it is kind of up to you, but they would just append additional columns uh, to the file. And so it's like, hey, if you want it, it's all available. But we hear from customers and practitioners around, hey, I'd like to maybe not have a cost and usage data set that has 300 plus columns to it. And so what we've decided to do is there's some very specific use cases of data that maybe make sense to be in their own data set. You can reference them as needed for specific use cases, but you don't need it available all the time. The first data set that we chose to do that with, we're calling contract commitments. So when I worked with a lot of very large customers within AWS, they had specific agreements, just like you would have with other providers, and they wanted to track their performance against that. But that wasn't anything that was really represented within the cost and usage data. It was a conversation with an account team or something else. And again, this isn't don't think this is like inside knowledge, right? This is hey, I've signed a contract with a company and I want to make sure that I'm hitting the right milestones and that I understand that I'm getting the expected utility out of that contract. And so what we've done is we've formalized that approach with a very structured data set. And it's nothing complicated. It's like, when does the contract start? When does it end? What are the line items on the contract? It's pretty common for contracts across cloud providers to have both spend and usage based commitments. And so we want to be able to express that. And as a practitioner, you want to understand, like, is the usage that I'm accruing in a given billing period or month, uh, does it does it meet the requirements that I've signed a contract for? And if yes, that's great. Then I should see some sort of reflected discount there. And if the answer is no, then like I have a clear indication that it's not, and I'm not mistracking my progress against goals. And then this is also really powerful from a contract renewal standpoint. So it's around driving transparency throughout the entire process. And again, this isn't what we heard from practitioners is like, look, I'm doing this already. It would be great to have something standardized to point to. And so what you're going to see Focus continue to do is it's not that we're necessarily charting new ground. It's just we're trying to standardize and normalize practices that already sit within the FinOps practitioner realm. And so contracts are a big one. They're relatively ubiquitous as an activity. Talk to any FinOps practitioner, how they communicate value to their executive team. And generally, like there's a contract involved with that behavior and activity.
For sure. And I know, like, when it comes to this standardization, right? That's we are talking with a lot of customers that want to see more of this in their billing data, that standardization and uniformity across things. And they are also very thankful, and we're thankful for the format to have this kind of capability, right, to be brought in. We're working on, like right now, mapping using AI to map costs into the Focus specification and bring it in. So it makes things a whole lot easier. I know that you've also seen. Can you kind of give us some of the use cases and ways that you've seen organizations using Focus beyond just kind of the simple normalization of costs and how they're operationalizing it, right? So like the question being, okay, so Matt, tell us how an organization could really use this in their practice beyond just like, hey, we're normalizing costs. What's that look like when it's operationalized, right?
Yeah. So what we've seen is that like it doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe that's like kind of my like intro statement of like getting started is better than like sitting in analysis paralysis. And so for folks that are trying to operationalize Focus within the organization, I generally recommend like starting. There's two ways to do it. You can either like take your largest amount of spend and try to capture it there. So for most practitioners, that's going to be their cloud bill. And so again, you're going to see a number of cloud providers, but then there's also SaaS spend or data center spend. Like we have this saying within the foundation that we're in this like state of happily hybrid for most practitioners, where there's a subset of workloads that make sense to be in the public cloud. Maybe they're a bit more dynamic, need to scale up, scale down. And then there's like more steady state activities, or like maybe there's technology decisions and choices that practitioners want to have a bit more control over. So maybe they're running their own data center, or they're doing something in private cloud. Like all of that is perfectly fine. We don't have a perspective, like we love everybody. We just want to be able to communicate that effectively across the areas of spend that you're focused on allocating. You mentioned before, Hunter, around the idea that the language allows practitioners to like not need to learn a new thing. This also supports extending into new technology areas without needing to learn a new language. And so if you need to move across providers, on top of you can build your practice, this is domain knowledge you have forever. You can also adopt the right sets of technology for your business, and you can communicate that value again back to the relevant stakeholders within your organization.
Well, and on that note too, I've spoken personally to FinOps practitioners and different people in roles and leadership in organizations where the adoption of AI spend has driven been a major driver for them adopting Focus specification, as well as like from FinOps practitioners. I've seen this multiple times now where they're like, hey, I'm starting in a new company. They don't have a ton of FinOps stuff going on, or they're taking newly in charge of an established FinOps practice. First order of business, focus, so that it can all just be normalized, get it into that format as fast as they possibly can to get more people on the same page. And I feel like that mentality also is helping create and normalize really that role of a FinOps person, where this is so tied into what's going on there.
Been such a fun experience over the last 9-10 months or so since I've been at the foundation to see, I'll say, like, focus has graduated into the ecosystem or the zeitgeist of the practitioner, not from a this is interesting, but like now it's getting baked into like request for, hey, I will only re-sign a contract if you support focus from like a FinOps tooling standpoint, or they're evaluating a new provider and it's like, hey, like, what would it take for you to be able to support focus? Because what, as you were mentioning before, like either they're already getting utility out of it, or they just recognize that they're planning on growing their technology footprint, and having a single unified language makes that a much easier process. So it's been really cool to see that over the last couple of months.
Yeah, and you're seeing it from so many different, because I know you're talking to vendors like us. You're also talking to different organizations of many different sizes, right? I want to ask you, of course, as a product person, right? The very first question you get as soon as you have like a big release is, hey, what's next? Right? So what's the future plan? What do you guys have going on next? And what does the next kind of milestone look like? If you can speak to that, and maybe, or kind of gauge from the feedback you've gotten, what are the impressions that you've got for where focus is going, right?
Yeah. So this is actually one of the things that I love the most about working at the foundation is the specification. It's an open specification. You can go on our focus spec GitHub repo and see all of the activity that's happening across the working group. That includes the individual features that we're planning on releasing in 1.4.
That's focus.finops.org. Focus.finops.org. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
And so some of these things that we're introducing, I'd mentioned the contract commitment data set. We released that as an MVP in 1.3. There's additional dimensions for contract specificity that we're bringing into 1.4. So that one's not super surprising. This will actually come out in the State of FinOps survey, which I believe will be out by the time this airs. Is one of the primary needs for practitioners, because it's a practitioner survey, is that they need to understand how to handle versioning, and how can they normalize their data across providers. Like we touched before, like focus is that unifying language, but the actual implementations vary across providers that support focus. And so we're launching the focus conformance program to account for that. And so we're starting with focus 1.2. We'll have support for Focus 1.3 certification in just a few months' time, and then we'll have 1.4 shortly after that. But the idea is like, how do I drive transparency from a practitioner that's either a current user of a provider or interested in evaluating whether or not they want to adopt providers? So we're talking conformance gap report to say like we support versus don't support these things, and then a native column if they have an existing data set to the focus column mapping, again, around whether it's one-to-one, whether there's some sort of transformation. But it's really just on driving transparency and building trust across the ecosystem that what they can do is consistent with what's being marketed. The other thing that we're working on is an invoice detail data set. And so previously, like you have an invoice ID that's present if the invoice has been issued, or maybe you have a provisional invoice ID that's available depending on how the provider does it. But you don't actually know, like, has this been paid? Has this been delivered? And if you're operating within a single geographic region, this may seem like a trivial activity. But if you're a global company and you're getting invoices issued across n number of geographic regions, like it's very important to understand, like, is your billing period still open or closed? Like, has the invoice been issued? Has it been paid? Has it been voided? Is there a correction? There's a number of kind of dimensions that go into tracking progress for invoices specifically. And then with the billing, with billed cost, like that's the cost that you're expecting to see from the invoice anyway. So we're trying to make that as clear as possible. Again, it's more of an advanced practitioner use case, but we're also observing, going back to the stakeholder piece, is I used to have a ton of discussions with just FinOps practitioners, and now we're starting to bring more procurement folks into the fold. And so making sure that we're covering other dimensions that are relevant to running the business, but maybe these are the partners of the FinOps practitioner that we're also trying to bring in and normalize that language as well.
Yeah, the often overlooked data warehouse people too, right? We can't forget them.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're
the BIEs of the world are near and dear to my heart.
That's right. Well, Matt, thank you so much again for your time today. Want to give you an opportunity to, is there anything else that you want to touch on or add from Focus, or anything else with FinOps out to the community here?
Yeah, I would say if you can join us at FinOps X in June, I would love to see you. We'll have a Focus booth kind of talking about all the cool and interesting things that are happening within Focus. This is a community-driven specification. Like, I don't have the best ideas. Like, no one has a kind of a stranglehold on those things. Like, we're only as good as the inputs and feedback that we get from the community. So if there's something that's missing or something you want us to expand on, this is how we get better. And I would love to be able to take in those inputs. And yeah, outside of that, it's been an absolute pleasure, Hunter, and like looking forward to catching up next time.
Yeah, man, me too. This is fantastic. Thanks again for your time today. And everybody, again, check out focus.finops.org for tons more information, how you can get started with the framework, what it looks like. Also, finops.org for information about FinOps X. I know a lot of us are going to be there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be there yet, but I might be. And want to encourage you, the way that Matt is taking FinOps about the, feedback about the Focus specification is he's got a direct link to his calendar where you can book his time to have a conversation with him if you've used or have ideas about Focus, if you're familiar with it, for this feedback. Check out his LinkedIn profile. It's probably the quickest and easiest way to get in touch with you. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, it's accurate.
And he's got a direct link to be able to do that there. So head on over to LinkedIn. Again, that's Matt Cowsert, Cowsert. And everybody, thanks again for listening today. Matt, thanks again, man. Really appreciate your time.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Hunter.